Well, we're sort of sliding toward Garagemahall right
Through
now
the water.
it's kind of a blizzard. It was way worse just 10 minutes ago.
Right.
And it may be way worse again in 10 minutes, or it may be springtime weather in 10 minutes.
You know the old saying, drive 5 miles or wait 5 minutes, and it'll change. That's Utah's weather.
That's Utah weather, especially this time of year. Anyway, we're anticipating good weather because that's the optimistic approach.
There you go.
But the reason we're sliding over there right now is we've got another locomotive in the trunk. We haven't even unpacked the ones that we've got yet. We're still missing a couple of LGB moguls, and I don't know, some things are probably mislabeled. There's a bunch of stuff missing. But in the meantime, an Accucraft K27 popped up on eBay, and well, it was just there, and so, well, I bought it.
There you go.
And it's in the trunk, and we're taking it over there to unpack it and show it to you because we have some plans for it.
Yeah, we do.
The Accucraft 122.3 scale Mikados are all really, really beautiful engines. The K27 is no exception. This cool model turned up on eBay, source of all fun and cool things. It's always fun to just go in there and shop. The downside is you end up buying stuff like this, even though you really don't need it. But dang, it's just too cool to pass up. This particular locomotive's been rather substantially reworked. It's got a lot of weathering on it. Now, each of these K27s was a little bit different from the other, and so one would expect each one to look a little different, but this one looks a lot different than most K27s, and we'll get back to that. eBay shippers are usually quite proud of their packaging techniques, and quite often it can take you 2 or 3 days just to unpack something, and no exception here. It was really well packaged. Now here's what makes this engine particularly unique. This is the original cab off of the model, and a different cab has been scratch built and added to it. Engine 455 was in a wreck, and a larger cab was put on after the wreck, and that's what's been modeled here. But fortunately, the original cab is still here, and I'm thinking I may just put the thing back on. The engine shows a little bit of wear and tear. It's been rather heavily used, I imagine. None of this bothers me, as I'm planning to completely rework the locomotive. The 455 cab has been rather well built, even though I'm sort of thinking of going back to the original cab. The original cab here looks really, really nice, and I have a diabolical plan for the other one. Now, you see, the reason I have diabolical plans is up here in the attic I have another K27. In this particular case, it's the Bachmann Spectrum K27. Same engine, different manufacturer. The Bachmann K27 is made of plastic, where the Accucraft is an entirely brass engine, so that's probably the biggest difference between them. But it's kind of fun to stick the two together here to see just exactly how they shape up when compared to each other. Now, as would be expected, the brass engine weighs quite a bit more than the Bachmann, although either one of them is not something you'd want to drive over your foot. They're both incredibly heavy. Now, one of the things that's rather noteworthy is that at first glance, you wouldn't even know which engine is which. You really kind of have to get your nose down in there to find any real significant differences between them at all. Now, some of the differences are just those little eccentricities, those changes from one locomotive to the next that made each K27 somewhat unique. But the detail on the Bachmann is really, really good and holds up nicely against the brass engine. One thing that doesn't hold up so well is plastic that's colored like brass. Doesn't look anything like the real brass, which is just beautiful. Now the Bachmann also has a doghouse on its tender, which is really neither here nor there because Accucraft sells a brass doghouse if you want to add that. This is a doghouse. It's a little wood shed that was put on the tender to give the brakeman someplace to ride. The massive size is very apparent here when compared to a HO locomotive. 120.3 scale models are always impressive, but a big Mikado is really impressive. This is a larger Mikado, a K36. The K27s came out in 1903, and in 1924 the Rio Grande started calling them K27s. The train crews preferred to call them mud hens. They weren't too keen on them, this because they could pull so many cars that they were putting a lot of guys off the job. The railroad solved this problem by paying anybody more that was willing to run a K27. There were 4 different K-series engines on the Denver and Rio Grande. The K27 was the first and the smallest. The largest was the K37, and it could pull twice as many cars as the earlier locomotives. These large Mikados kept the narrow gauge railroad competitive clear into the 1960s, and they've become the mainstay on the scenic railroads. 464 here is one of the 2 that survive. Today it runs on the Huckleberry Railroad. It's beautifully restored. The Huckleberry Railroad is in Flint, Michigan. 463 here is on the Cumbers and Toltec. They started restoration on this thing decades ago and it just languished forever, but now it's restored and back up to operating condition, and it gets to join the stable of locomotives here at Chama, New Mexico, running on the Cumbers and Toltec narrow gauge railroad. The Cumbers and Toltec and the Durango and Silverton are the 2 surviving sections of the old Denver and Rio Grande Western narrow gauge. The rest of it's all been ripped up, but it's nice to see that there's 2 sections of the line still in operation. And now 2 K27s running as well. The K27's been modeled quite a bit. This is the really cool Blackstone version in HON3 scale. Runs like a little Swiss watch. It's got a sound system in it and everything. It's just really cool. Now this is our good friend Don Hendrickson again. You've seen him in a couple of the shows, and he models in ON3, and he's done several Mikados. As you can see, this one's missing a few parts at this point. Here in the tender is the sound system. Now the round unit is actually a speaker baffle placed over the speaker. Don designed this and then printed it on his 3D printer. Now the little purple unit is a Tsunami 1000 sound unit. Wouldn't work in my locomotives as it would burn up in there because of the high amperage. So I'm going to be using the Economy 4000, which can handle 4 amps. This is Soundtraxx in Durango, Colorado, which is also where the Durango and Silverton is, and I hope you've seen the really cool show we did on that place. Anyway, they're the ones who build the Tsunami sound units and now the Economy sound units. They also build those cool Blackstone models. This is one of Don Hendrickson's K28 locomotives. He's running it over at Steve Stribble's railroad. You should recognize Steve Stribble's railroad. It's been in a lot of the shows. Anyway, Don's going to be helping us rework these 2 K27s, and he's going to design a speaker baffle and print it on his 3D printer so we can see how that little piece of business works as well. Well, we're really looking forward to tearing into these 2 engines and reworking them, but first we need to finish the workbench here at Garagemahall.
Well, there you go. 2 different K27s.
Yeah.
And we're going to be, over the next few months, messing around with those. It seems that when the weather is like this,
Yes.
going to the bench and building stuff is
It's
the
just
rational
the
thing
rational
to do.
thing to do.
The weather is improving now, though. Well, sort of, or we're planning that it
as
will.
the minutes go by, yes.
Yeah, and as soon as real warm weather appears, we plan to be out in the countryside and driving around and doing that kind of screwing around,
Right.
because that's what you do come good weather.
Right.
But as soon as the snow flies, you kind of hermit in and you put on the fire log and you do these things and you
Right.
go to the bench and you build cool stuff.
Right.
The cool stuff we've been building all winter is Garagemahall.
Right.
So now we're going to be also building some models in Garagemahall.
That's the
so
plan.
that will be really cool. Well, if you haven't been to the website, that's toymantelevision.com. Of course, the channel is just Toyman Television here on YouTube, and you can get there by clicking on the little red rocket ship with a blue sky logo that's down in here, and that'll take you to the channel. Or as soon as the subscribe button pops up, you can click on that and that'll take you to the channel if you're a subscriber. Now, if you have been foolish and you have not subscribed, you still want to click on the little blue button that's going to be popping in down here, because then you will become a subscriber and it will take you to the channel. Two things with one click. That's called economy. It's just cool.
Yeah.
So economy of motion, one click, two outcomes.
There you go.
So that button will be popping in just about now. Blue button, click on that. You're now subscribed and you go to the channel. Or if you're a subscriber, you just go to the channel. Well, we're not sure how you found this fun and exciting bit of screwing around on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here again in 1 week with some more significant screwing around. See you then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.